Most people think of as the gut, if we're talking about the gut, is probably something that looks like this. Hopefully happy and smiley, but a lot of people, of course, don't have happy, smiley guts at all. In fact, Australia has the highest search term for gut health in the world. So we must be a nation of people with some concerns for gut. So your digestive system is a step-by-step process. I always think of it as being a little bit like a team. You've got all these individual players that are working cohesively, ideally, for the outcome of good digestion and absorption of nutrients, because that's what our gut is there to do. Acceptable as well. If it's going up, if it's getting drier, the transit time's too slow and things are drying out, or if it's coming through as liquid, then it's too quick, it's too fast, too soft. So in summary, the gut is a step-by-step system. It starts at the mouth. I think a lot of people don't take into consideration that the mouth is actually part of your digestive system. It's where it starts. A lot of us are guilty of not chewing our food properly, eating when we're doing something else. One of the clues that I look for when I'm talking to someone is if someone says, oh yes, I drink lots of water when I eat a meal. I feel like I need to drink lots of water when I'm eating. I will immediately think either they're just dehydrated, they're not drinking enough outside of mealtime, or they're not producing enough saliva. And if they're not producing enough saliva, well, then that's going to affect all the downstream digestion, because the body's not getting the sense that it's not getting the signaling that food's coming in, and you're not getting that first step of digestion occurring. So what the gut needs to function properly. So it's not just organs, it has processes. A big one is the nervous system. We've all heard of fight or flight. We've all heard of sympathetic nervous system. That's the state that most of us are in a lot of the time. So fight or flight is the part of our nervous system that responds to stress. And the digestive secretions, the acid and the enzymes, they signal, they tell the digestive system what's happening, get ready for the next step. The breakdown of food, of course, and then protecting against infection. Bile again, because I think it's so important, massively overlooked when we're thinking about gut health, but we've got that fat digestion. Detoxification, super important to have good bile flow, and then the motility aspect as well. And then motility really does matter. We have something called the MMC, or migrating motor complex. This is a wave that goes through the digestive system approximately every 90 minutes, maybe 120 minutes, and it just keeps everything moving through. So transit time is a key indicator of motility, how long it takes for something to enter your mouth to exit your body. Normal motility is about somewhere between about, say, 18, 24 hours. If it's a bit longer, a bit slower, not super important. And of course, if we don't have good motility and the transit time is too slow, our clearance is going to be poor. We now know that if undesirable compounds, toxins, whatever you want to call them, spend too long in contact with the wall of the digestive system, it can lead to problems. It can also lead to us giving the gut time to reabsorb things that the body is trying to get rid of. Digestive capacity comes down to regulation, it comes down to acid, it comes down to enzymes, it comes down to bile, and it comes down to motility. So the gut microbiome, this is probably a word you've heard a lot of. This is very topical at the moment in research and in health. So the things that the microbiome do, or the bacteria do in our gut, is they produce certain compounds. So a balanced microbiome will produce a lot of these compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. Immune regulation is incredibly important. Bacteria help regulate our immune system. Imbalanced microbiome will be excess gas. People that tend to get a lot of wind, a lot of flatulence really, it's a sign that there's a problem with the microbiome. Imbalanced microbiome produces a lot of methane. Methane causes problems because it slows down motility. Imbalanced microbiome will lead to inflammation. So some of the other things that bacteria can produce. They can produce compounds. Something called hydrogen sulfide, for instance, can drive inflammation systemically. I see patients with a lot of bacteria that produce hydrogen sulfide, and they're really prone to joint issues. They have a lot of inflammatory joint issues, which is not autoimmunity, but it's actually inflammation being driven by something that the bacteria in the gut are producing. Prebiotics feed the ecosystem. We used to have this idea that we could go in and kill bacteria in the gut. We call that weeding, and then we could seed it. We could just take some probiotics and we'd replace what we'd killed off. You take a course of antibiotics, you take some probiotics, net gain, nothing really changes. So we now know that the way to rebalance that ecosystem, that microbiome, is to feed it. And so fiber, we talk a lot about fiber. Resistant starch. Resistant starch is a unique kind of starch that's found in things like green banana. So the goal is 30 different plant foods per week. Now that doesn't necessarily mean 30 serves. If it does, wonderful, but 30 different plants. And then now, why symptoms are so confusing. The key thing here that I'm always thinking about is the symptom is not the cause. So you can have one symptom is not always one cause, and one cause is not always one symptom. Common mistakes that I see in working with gut is removing more food, random supplements, buying something on social media, going to a health food shop and just taking something and hoping that it works, and aggressive protocols. And the key thing that I'm always thinking about is the common digestive breakdown patterns. So patterns, not labels. A label doesn't tell us anything. I see lots of people who have been given the label IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Doesn't tell us much. Just tell us that you don't have Crohn's disease, you don't have ulcerative colitis, and you're not celiac. Food is medicine, as they say. Food is signaling. So bitter plants. Bitter is actually really interesting. So we've got bitter taste buds in our mouth. We've actually got them throughout our whole digestive system. They stimulate bile, they stimulate acid, and improves digestive signaling. So having bitter foods. Polyphenols, which I've mentioned a few times, they're the pigments in food. So blueberries are so-called superfoods because of their polyphenols. These feed bacteria, reduce inflammation, and help improve the integrity of the gut wall. Prebiotic fibers we've spoken about a little bit, feeding the bacteria, making them produce the short chain fatty acids that suit us. So practical takeaways: slow down, breathe, sit to eat and chew well. If you're feeling super stressed, don't eat. It's better to fast a little bit. You'll feel better if you don't eat. Or if you do need to eat when you're super busy or super stressed, eat something that's almost partially digested already, like soup. That puts very little pressure on your digestive system. You'll get lots of good nutrients out of it. Don't sit down and eat a steak if you're super stressed. That's not going to end well. Support bile and enzymes. Bitters, I use a lot of bitter herbs in practice because they're so fantastic at getting everything working well. You can include bitters in terms of diet. Don't fear healthy fats. You need fat in your digestive system for making bile. And the constant snacking. If you're feeling like you constantly need to eat, be thinking, is it head hunger or belly hunger? If it's head hunger, it's stress. If it's belly hunger, you need to be eating bigger meals. Respect fiber tolerance. Do it gradually. Ideally match the fiber to motility. We go very slowly. If you're one of the people that if you try and increase fiber and your gut gets slower, then there is a problem of motility that needs to be addressed. And what not to waste money on: random supplements. Maybe sometimes you'll hit the jackpot and you'll take something and it'll work really well, fantastic. Aggressive or long-term restriction. If I put someone on a restricted diet, it is only ever temporary. I see patients that have put themselves on low FODMAP diets, for instance, and they've been on them for years, which was never the objective of that diet, for instance. When to seek help. If you've had unintentional weight loss, persistent blood in the stool, severe pain, or there's ongoing nutrient deficiency, you need to have further investigations done. Finally, this is the blueprint. So the base of the pyramid is regulation. It's about making sure the nervous system is regulated. The digestive system just can't work unless it is. Upstream function, your stomach acid, your digestive enzymes, and your bile. Motility, can't emphasize that one enough. Again, that's something probably equal to bile in importance. And then the microbial balance, making sure that you've got good diversity, that all the bacteria have got the food that they need. And then finally, we'll have the resilience. We have that ability to expand our diet and enjoy food again. And I've had a question, how do you measure 2FL? Coming back to that 2-fucosal lactose. I'm not aware that you can measure 2FL per se, but you can certainly measure FOOT2. The genetic test that I use certainly looks at FOOT2. So we can do that test and have a look and see whether you're an excretor or non-secretor. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for. If you've got any questions that I haven't answered, or you've got any questions that come to mind, please shoot me an email. I'm always happy to answer any questions. If you're interested in working with me, jump onto the website. You can see how I work as a practitioner and my consultations. If you haven't already signed up to my newsletter, I send out a weekly newsletter talking a lot about digestive health, about DNA, and all these kinds of principles for getting you feeling well again.